Kimberling Magical School has gained a notorious reputation for its exceptionally high casualty rate, with a staggering 20% of its students being consumed by their own spells upon graduation. It is within this perilous environment that our story unfolds, focusing on a new student named Oliver as he embarks on his journey towards the entrance ceremony of the prestigious institution. While making his way to the ceremony, Oliver encounters a peculiar talking flower that warns him the future that lies ahead at the school. Oliver dismisses the flower's words as a mere scare tactic commonly used on incoming students. However, his attention is drawn to a girl named Katie, who appears visibly concerned by the flower's ominous message. Another student named Guy then appears, offering an explanation for the flower's behavior. He reveals that the personalities of these magical flowers can be influenced by the absorption of magic particles from the surrounding environment. Intrigued by Katie, Guy engages her in conversation and asks her favorite animal. Katie's response reveals her unwavering love for all creatures, including the slimiest of beings. Meanwhile, in the distance, a girl named Michelle warns Pete when he nearly steps on a plant. Suddenly, a captivating figure emerges from the shadows, clad in a traditional kimono. Unfazed by the flower's taunting, this enigmatic samurai girl captivates everyone with her presence, as it is a rare sight to witness a samurai at the school. Oliver experiences a vision of engaging in a fierce duel with the samurai girl, stirring an inexplicable connection within his heart. As she turns away, a smile graces her face, further solidifying Oliver's belief that fate has intervened in their meeting. Passing through the school gates, Oliver and his fellow students find themselves enthralled by a grand parade of magical monsters, their awestruck gazes fixed on the spectacle. However, Katie's joy is tainted by the inclusion of a troll in the parade, which she objects to. She argues that trolls, despite their misunderstood nature, do not share the same language as humans and only attacks humans when their territory are invaded. She starts to argue with Guy until Pete attempts to stop them, but their discussion is abruptly interrupted by a hooded girl who casts a spell on Katie. The spell causes Katie's legs to move uncontrollably, propelling her toward the troll. Despite Oliver and Guy's best efforts, they are unable to stop her sprint, realizing that she has become a victim of a magic spell. Suddenly, Hibiya appears in front of Katie, shielding her from the troll. Realizing that Hibiya might die trying to fight the troll alone, Oliver conceives a daring plan. He calls upon everyone to unite their wind spells, directing their combined power towards the same focal point. Although initially met with skepticism from Michelle, Oliver implores his comrades to trust in his strategy. Together, they synchronize their incantations, and Oliver, adding his own spell, amplifies their individual gusts into a resounding dragon's roar, capturing the troll's attention. Hibiya instructed them to stand back and jumped onto the troll, defeating it in a single strike. Hibiya expresses her gratitude to the entire group, assuring Katie that she will continue to protect her. Inside the school, anticipation fills the air as all the students congregate in the hallway, anxiously awaiting the commencement of the ceremony. Through a twist of fate, Oliver finds himself standing beside Hibiya, who reveals that she had acted impulsively when facing the troll and had no plan in mind. She dismisses the situation with a laugh, admitting that her katana lacks a cutting edge and thanks Oliver for saving her life. The headmistress, Witch Esmeralda of Kimberling, finally arrives, apologizing for the earlier incident and addressing the students with words of caution. She emphasizes the danger they will encounter throughout their time at the academy, warning of the low graduation rate attributed to dangerous encounters that have led to students disappearing, succumbing to insanity, or even turning against one another. In the midst of the headmistress's speech, Hibiya raises her hand, seeking permission to speak. To everyone's surprise, she suggests a method to cure the headmistress's headache through the application of massage. Oliver, taken aback by her audacity, cannot help but deem her actions foolish. Unperturbed by Hibiya's proposal, the headmistress brushes it aside and directs the students to proceed to the welcoming banquet, using a magic levitate them to the grand dining hall. At the dining hall, Oliver rejoins his separated companions, expressing his gratitude for their support during the encounter. Michelle then suggests that they take turns introducing themselves. Each member takes their turn, revealing their backgrounds and aspirations. Michelle, hailing from the noble McFarland family, introduces herself as the eldest daughter. Guy, representing a lineage of generations that have operated a magic farm. Pete, with no magical lineage but fueled by an unwavering passion for books. Oliver, drawing upon his extensive lineage of mages and expertise in spell manipulation, showcases his skills in arranging and adapting spells. Finally, Hibiya, hailing from a family of samurai, reveals that her presence in the academy is owed to a mage named McFarland, who once saved her life. It is then revealed to the group that Michella's father, a lecturer at the academy, is the very same mage who saved Hibiya's life. As the group enjoys their meal, Oliver takes a moment to reflect on the events that have unfolded since he arrived. The next day, Oliver is awakened by clock knockers playing pranks with the clock needles. When he steps outside, he is surprised to find a mysterious girl lurking in the shadows. Intrigued by her sudden appearance, Oliver prepares his sword and demands to know who she is. She reveals that she has been sent by his brother to watch over him, reassuring Oliver that his sibling cares for his well-being. Oliver's curiosity is piqued, and he asks for her name, to which she introduces herself as Teresa. Continuing on his journey, Oliver comes across Hibiya bathing in the school fountain. Struck by her vulnerability and lack of shame, Oliver quickly casts a curtain spell to give her privacy. Noticing the scar on the body, he engages her in conversation and asks about the scars on her body. Hibiya, being honest, apologizes for the view and shares the story behind her scars. She explains that bathing is a ritual for her to cleanse herself from the bloodshed of a past war she was involved in. Feeling a connection and sensing the intertwining of their paths, Oliver's mind races with thoughts of fate. Memories from his past flood his thoughts, solidifying the belief that their connection is significant. Respecting Hibiya's privacy, Oliver encourages her to finish bathing quickly since she lacks a towel. He then offers his jacket for her to dry off. The next morning at Kimberly Academy, Oliver and Pete meet their friends. Guy rushes to catch up with them because he overslept and almost missed his classes. Guy thanks a clock in his room for helping him wake up in time. Hibiya proudly mentions that she doesn't need alarm clocks and naturally wakes up around 6 in the morning. Hibiya is finally wearing the academy uniform, which arrived in her room the previous night. She feels like a proper mage now, and everyone cheers for her, except for Oliver, who is lost in thought about Hibiya's scars. Guy snaps Oliver back to reality and asks why Oliver's robe looks damp. Oliver dismisses it as his imagination. Pete, unable to bear the meaningless conversation, expresses his excitement to find out what a magic class is like. Hibiya is eager to learn magic, so they all head to their first sword arts class. The teacher, Luther, welcomes the students and explains what sword arts are. Pete volunteers to answer and acts like the teacher's pet. He explains that sword arts are techniques performed using swords like the one he is holding. The use of swords started 400 years ago when a famous mage named Wilf Batterwell lost a duel to a non-magical person in close combat. Since then, mages started carrying swords to defend themselves when they can't use magic. Luther asks if anyone has experience in fighting, and Hibiya raises her hand. Richard, who had been looking down on Hibiya, volunteers to duel against her. He claims to have heard stories of Hibiya defeating a troll with just a sword and wants to see if she's actually capable. Oliver intervenes and tells Luther that he would like to duel Hibiya instead, as he fought the troll alongside her. Richard doesn't want to miss the opportunity, so Michella challenges him to a duel instead. Richard knows Michella is stronger, but he accepts the challenge to impress the others. Luther announces that the first duel will be between Oliver and Hibiya, and the second duel will be between Richard and Michella. Luther puts a spell on both their swords to prevent serious injuries. He explains that the duel will end if one of them receives a deadly blow to the head or chest. Oliver decides to take it easy on Hibiya because she doesn't know how to use magic. Hibiya suddenly changes her hair color to gray and attacks Oliver with all her strength. Oliver struggles to defend himself against her powerful strikes. They clash their swords, and Oliver realizes how dangerous Hibiya's skills are. Just as Oliver is losing the upper hand, Hibiya starts crying as memories from her past overwhelm her. Oliver doesn't want her to be upset, so he unleashes his full potential to bring her back to the present. Hibiya's intense desire to kill becomes so strong that Luther is forced to stop the duel and scolds both of them for breaking his spell. After the duel, Michella asks Richard what he thinks of Hibiya now, but she decides not to humiliate him and retracts her earlier challenge. Luther begins the lecture, but Oliver doesn't attend the class. Hibiya catches up to Oliver and expresses her regret that their duel didn't come to a proper end. She desires to fight him again, but Oliver refuses, not wanting to fight someone like her anymore. He walks away, leaving Hibiya confused. Later, Guy complains about the gruesome lessons. He shares that the spellology teacher, Francis, opposes Luther's teachings, causing conflicts between the teachers. Guy doesn't look forward to attending the next classes. Despite that, he goes to the third class on magical biology, taught by Vanessa. Vanessa reveals herself to be a person who sees magical creatures as mere resources. Vanessa instructs the students to summon magical silkworms to their desks and explains that they should make the silkworms grow as many cocoons as possible by feeding them magic. She demonstrates by feeding a silkworm so much magic that its cocoon turns black and transforms into a fierce monster. Vanessa advises the students to learn to control their magic properly to prevent the silkworms from turning into monsters. She gives them a test to create 5 perfect cocoons out of 10, and those who fail will have to clean up their mess. The students begin feeding magic to their silkworms, and while some struggle, Michelle easily makes 5 cocoons with 1 failure. Michelle notices that Katie and Pete are having a hard time, so she asks Oliver to help them. Michelle sees that Hibiya is also struggling but doesn't ask Oliver to help her, as she realizes they're not on good terms. Instead, Michelle decides to help Hibiya herself and ignores Guy, who is also struggling. Pete manages to finish with 5 perfect cocoons, but Katie is slow and careful in making all 10 silkworms into cocoons without harming any of them. However, she fails to prevent the final silkworm from turning black as her magic fluctuates. Katie tries to save the silkworm, but it becomes a fierce monster and attacks her. Oliver and Michelle come to her aid but receive negative points as a penalty from Vanessa. Later, in the infirmary, Katie treats the wound on her hand caused by the silkworm and apologizes to Oliver for causing trouble. She explains that she doesn't support animal cruelty because she grew up with animals, including demi-humans, and developed a fondness for them. Katie had a close friendship with a troll named Patrol, even though others saw it as a threat. Whenever she sees animals or demi-humans getting hurt, she can't bear it. She understands that society sees them as resources to exploit, but she personally disagrees. Katie tells Oliver that she doesn't want to accept the cruelty that is considered normal at Kimberly Academy. Oliver understands her perspective and respects her as a compassionate person. He encourages her to remain true to herself and explore the world before deciding whether she wants to conform to the norms of other mages. Later, Oliver meets with Ms. Karst, who asks about his first day at the academy. She advises him to choose his friends more carefully, mocking Katie's incompetence. Oliver asserts that he can choose his friends himself and tells Karst not to pry into his personal life. At dinner, Katie reassures everyone that she is fine now. Hibiya seems troubled, but she claims to be fine when asked. Pete realizes he left his book in the spellology class and decides to retrieve it. Oliver and Michelle accompany him. As they try to return, the campus transforms into a mysterious labyrinth at sunset. They encounter Ophelia, a 4th-year student known for her evil research. Oliver recognizes her and warns the group that she is dangerous. Ophelia tries to capture Oliver, but they manage to escape temporarily. However, with the help of her associate Cyrus, Ophelia blocks their path, preventing their escape. After realizing that going on the offense might provoke Ophelia and her allies, Michelle decides not to defend but rather observe how the situation unfolds. Ophelia and Cyrus seem to be agreeing with each other, pretending as if they haven't seen each other in a long time. During their conversation, Ophelia discloses that Cyrus desecrates the corpses he comes across, but Cyrus retaliates by stating that what Ophelia does to the men she finds attractive is even more repulsive, going as far as calling her a succubus. This angers Ophelia, leading her to threaten him with harm if he continues to tease her. However, Cyrus remains unfazed and boasts about how he had previously inflicted severe damage on Ophelia during one of their past confrontations. This sparks a conflict, and they both draw their weapons, preparing to fight each other. Cyrus uses a spell to summon an enormous skeleton monster, prompting Ophelia to respond by summoning a demon from her belly button. Pete is disturbed by the summoning magic and wonders what kind of disgusting power Ophelia possesses. Oliver clarifies the situation, explaining that it's not magic at all but rather that she is giving birth to the hideous demon. The monstrous entities engage in a fierce battle. Realizing the danger, Oliver decides they must flee before becoming embroiled in the fight. However, Cyrus blocks their escape route once more using his bone magic. Just when things seem dire, Hibiya arrives to save the day just in time. As the confrontation between Cyrus and Ophelia reaches a climax, Ophelia's demon shreds Cyrus's skeleton monster into pieces. However, Cyrus quickly reforms the skeleton monster and orders it to continue the fight. Hibiya, wielding her katana, cuts through the bone wall and steps forward to protect her friends. She urges them to escape, believing that joining the battle against the succubus and the summoner would not end well. Ophelia's demon once again destroys Cyrus's skeleton monster, leading him to admit defeat. He taunts Ophelia, asking what foul being she harbored in her womb to summon such a hideous monster. In response, Ophelia reveals that Cyrus is no better than her, as he used real human corpses to create the skeleton monster. Hibiya decides she cannot let these evil individuals go unpunished and tries to sacrifice herself by charging towards the two monsters to eliminate them. Oliver follows her to help, but before they can act, a mysterious student named Alvin intervenes. Alvin uses his fire magic to ignite both monsters into flames. Alvin, the student president of Kimberly Magic Academy, promises to protect Oliver and his friends from the evil students. Ophelia tries to escape, but Alvin's friend Carlos restrains her with his sword. Carlos brings Ophelia to Alvin, and Cyrus surrenders himself. Carlos then releases them and explains to Oliver and his friends that Ophelia and Carlos were only trying to recruit them due to being new students. Alvin is impressed that Oliver and his friends managed to avoid falling into the clutches of the evil students, explaining that many others have been ensnared in the labyrinth. He guides them out of the labyrinth, leading them back to their friends. Although everyone is relieved that they are unharmed, Oliver becomes furious and grabs Hibiya by her collar, questioning if she had a death wish. He is upset that she recklessly followed them into the labyrinth and attempted to sacrifice herself by facing the dangerous monsters alone. Michelle steps in to calm Oliver down and suggests that they talk things out. The group heads to their usual gathering spot by the fountain, where they wait for Hibiya to explain her actions. Hibiya opens up about losing her attachment to life long ago, feeling like everything around her is not real. She shares a harrowing tale of a brutal war where she fought against overwhelming odds. In the midst of the battle, she made a wish to confront a powerful enemy named Yasutsuna, only to discover that the person she killed was the enemy leader's son. This realization led to a vengeful attack on her, but she was saved by a wizard who saw great potential in her. Hibiya reveals that ever since then, everything has felt like a dream, and she desired to die to fulfill her wish before waking up. She explains to Oliver that she believes true joy can only be found in wielding a blade out of mutual love, not for revenge. She felt happiness when she fought him in the first class and wanted to end her life then. When Oliver refused to fight her seriously, it hurt her deeply, leading to her emotional breakdown. Hibiya's confession prompts Michelle to understand her perspective as a warrior longing for a meaningful battle. However, Michelle can't allow Hibiya to continue seeking death, as she is now a mage, not a warrior. She urges Hibiya to find a new perspective and live her life fully, assuring her that the world they are in is not a dream. Michelle emphasizes the importance of spending time with friends and the person she has confessed to loving. Finally understanding the value of her life, Hibiya promises Oliver not to attempt suicide again and apologizes for causing him worry. She asks her friends to help her learn how to live as a mage, acknowledging that she might not be the brightest student, but she is eager to improve with their support. With their differences resolved, the group ends the day in happiness and reconciliation. The following morning at Kimberly Academy, Hibiya eagerly rushes towards Oliver and the others, who have been waiting for her. After greeting her friends, Hibiya apologizes once more for causing them worry the day before and promises to improve herself. She expresses her eagerness to learn magic and the group heads to class together. Hibiya approaches Oliver, wanting to walk with him and be close to him. Oliver becomes uncomfortable and asks why she is doing this. Hibiya explains that she is simply looking at the person she loves, blushing as she speaks. During sword arts class, Leonard explains the 6 invisible sword techniques known as the Spellblades techniques to the students. They begin practicing their swordsmanship when an annoying character enters to bother Oliver. The annoying character, Richard, wants to duel Oliver to prove his superiority to him. To deal with the situation, Oliver wants to deliberately lose his duel against Richard to make him look good. Hibiya senses that Oliver wants to lose but doesn't want to see Oliver loses unless he's truly beaten, so she encourages him to fight with all his strength. Before they can start, Leonard interrupts them. Later, Michelle confides in Oliver that she and Richard grew up together and were constantly compared to each other. She believes it's her fault that Richard turned out the way he did. Pete suddenly informs them that Katie has run off to save the troll that attacked her during the opening ceremony. Katie tries to convince the teacher, Darius, not to kill the troll, but he thinks she is being disobedient and uses a spell on her. Her friends come to her rescue, and Darius suggests punishing them as well, but a senior student named Milligan intervenes, stopping Darius from doing anything reckless. Professor Leonard also objects to killing the troll, as the headmistress had agreed to spare it. Darius walks away, and Katie is relieved to have saved another life. And thus, the episode came to an end. Don't forget to like and subscribe.